The Korean Mafia boss's baby wouldn't stop crying in the elevator until a black single mother did the impossible. The infant's wails ricocheted off the gleaming chrome walls of the luxury hotel's private elevator, each scream more desperate than the last. The sound was primal, inconsolable, the kind of crying that made people's shoulders tense and their jaws clench. But this elevator had only one other occupant, and he wasn't flinching. Jun Young stood like a statue, carved from desperation and designer fabric. His immaculate navy suit tailored to perfection, probably worth more than most people's monthly rent, couldn't hide the elaborate tattoos crawling up his neck. Dragons and phoenixes in traditional Korean ink, the kind that told stories to those who knew how to read them. Stories about violence, about legacy, about a world most people pretended didn't exist. His jaw was locked so tight it looked painful. Those dark eyes, which had probably made grown men beg for mercy, now held something far more terrifying than rage. Panic. Raw, helpless, bone-deep panic. The baby in his arms, wrapped in a blanket that probably cost more than the average person's paycheck, continued to scream. 3 months old, and already bearing the weight of expectations she couldn't understand. 3 months since childbirth had stolen away the only woman Jun Young had ever loved. 3 months since the most feared man in the Korean underground had discovered something more powerful than any weapon in his arsenal: vulnerability. He'd tried everything. Bottles prepared by a nanny who'd raised 3 children of her own, pacifiers imported from Japan, rocking motions that felt foreign in arms more accustomed to violence than tenderness. The temperature was perfect, the diaper fresh, the formula the most expensive money could buy. Nothing worked. Mia didn't care that her father controlled territory from Seoul to Los Angeles. She didn't care that men crossed streets when they saw his shadow. She didn't care that entire families had vanished at his word. The infant only knew hunger, discomfort, and the absence of the warmth that had cradled her for 3 precious months before death claimed it. 14 floors below, Kendra Santana stood in the hotel lobby, trying to remember how to breathe. 9 months? 9 months since she'd held her son. 9 months since the steering wheel had jerked in her hands. Since the sound of metal crunching against the guardrail had ended everything. Sudden impact, they'd called it. Traumatic injury. As if clinical words could soften the memory of Elijah's silence in the car seat behind her. Kendra had once been someone, a rising gospel singer whose voice could make church mothers weep and sinners repent. But after the accident, after burying her baby boy, she couldn't even hum in the shower without breaking down. Now she worked as a hotel events coordinator, moving through life like a ghost haunting her own body. She clutched her worn leather Bible and a folder of sheet music from a memorial service she'd attended that morning. Not singing, just attending. She couldn't bring herself to use her voice anymore. It felt wrong, using the gift God gave her when she'd failed to protect the gift he'd given her first. The elevator dinged. Doors slid open. Kendra stepped inside, eyes downcast. Already pressing the button for the 14th floor, she wanted to go home, curl up with the grief counselor's useless platitudes, and another pint of ice cream she'd pretend to eat. Then she heard it. That cry. Her entire body seized. Breasts that still ached with phantom letdown after 9 months suddenly felt heavy. Arms that had held nothing but emptiness for so long actually trembled with muscle memory. And her grandmother's voice, that wise old woman who'd married a black serviceman and taught Kendra Korean lullabies on Carolina summer nights, whispered in her memory. A crying baby is a prayer that God trusts you to answer. Always answer. Kendra's eyes lifted. The man holding the baby looked like something from a crime thriller, dangerously handsome with those sharp Korean features, that perfectly styled black hair, and those tattoos that screamed violence even as his eyes screamed desperation. He stood rigid, almost robotic, as if moving might shatter whatever was keeping him upright. Their eyes met. His were hollow with exhaustion and something darker. Grief, maybe. The kind that lived in your bones and made breathing feel like betrayal. Kendra knew that look. She wore it every morning in the mirror. The baby's cry shifted, became even more desperate, and Kendra's body responded before her mind could interfere. Before common sense could tell her that this man was clearly dangerous. Before survival instincts could remind her that tattooed men in $15,000 suits who rode private elevators in luxury hotels weren't people you engaged with. The melody came unbidden to her lips, soft at first, barely a whisper. Korean words her grandmother had taught her decades ago. Syllables worn smooth by generations of mothers soothing desperate infants. Jajang, jajang, jajang. Uri ai gi jajang jajang jajang. The effect was instantaneous. The baby's wails cut off mid-cry. Those tiny eyes, so dark they were almost black, locked onto Kendra's face with an intensity that seemed impossible for an infant. The little fists stopped flailing. The rigid body in Junyoung's arms went soft. Complete silence flooded the elevator. Kendra kept singing, voice barely above a whisper, terrified that stopping would shatter whatever spell she'd accidentally cast. She saw the man's expression shift shock, then recognition, then something that looked almost like pain. His voice, when it finally came, was rough with disbelief and something that sounded like reverence. That's impossible. He spoke in English, but his accent wrapped around the words like silk over steel. That was my mother's lullaby. The elevator dinged again. 14th floor, but neither of them moved. Kendra stood there, still singing softly, watching this dangerous man stare at her like she'd just performed a miracle. The baby Mia, though Kendra didn't know her name yet, gazed up with wide, wondering eyes, completely calm for the first time in hours. How do you know that song? His voice was quieter now, almost gentle, though Kendra could see the coiled tension in his shoulders. This was a man accustomed to answers. My grandmother, Kendra whispered, not wanting to break the fragile peace. She was Korean, married an American soldier. She sang it to me when I was little. The elevator doors started to close. Junyoung's hand shot out, holding them open with a palm that bore knuckle scars underneath the expensive watch. Please. That single word carried the weight of 1,000 desperate nights. She hasn't stopped crying in 6 hours. The doctors say there's nothing wrong, but she won't stop. Until now. Until you. Kendra should have said no. Should have walked away from this man whose very presence screamed danger. From this baby who made her heart remember things it had no business remembering. But as she looked at Mia's peaceful face, as she felt the familiar weight of purpose settling into her empty arms, as her grandmother's wisdom echoed in her soul, Kendra Santana made a choice that would change everything. What floor are you on? She asked softly. Junyoung's expression shifted, hope and suspicion warring across features that rarely showed either. Penthouse, he said, still holding the elevator door. Behind him, Kendra could see 2 men in black suits, hands suspiciously positioned near their concealed weapons, watching this exchange with dangerous intensity. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was everything her therapist had warned her about, avoiding situations that might trigger her trauma, staying away from anything that reminded her of Elijah. But as Kendra stepped back into the elevator and the doors slid closed, carrying her upward into this stranger's world, she realized something profound. She'd spent 9 months running from anything that reminded her of her son. Maybe it was time to run towards something instead, even if that something came wrapped in tattoos, danger, and the desperate cry of a baby who needed her. The elevator ascended in silence. Broken only by the soft Korean lullaby Kendra continued to sing, and the impossible peace of a mafia boss's daughter finally finding comfort in a stranger's arms. Neither of them knew it yet, but in that chrome-walled elevator, suspended between floors and fates, 2 broken people had just collided in a way that would force them to choose between the darkness they knew and the light they'd both stopped believing in. The elevator dinged, penthouse floor, and Kendra Santana, carrying nothing but her Bible, her grief, and her grandmother's songs, stepped into a world that would demand everything she had left to give. If you've ever felt broken beyond repair, like the best parts of you died with someone you lost, this story is for you. Subscribe and join the family, because you deserve to see what happens when 2 shattered people find each other in the dark. The elevator climbed with mechanical precision, but Kendra's pulse raced in the opposite direction downward, spiraling into territory marked by warning signs her survival instincts couldn't ignore. Every rational thought screamed at her to hit the emergency stop, to escape back to the 14th floor, to her mediocre apartment and predictable grief. But Mia's peaceful breathing against Junyoung's chest held her captive more effectively than any threat could. The doors opened to reveal 2 men in black suits. They moved with the coordinated precision of predators, hands hovering near concealed weapons, eyes assessing Kendra with the cold calculation of professionals paid to eliminate problems. The one on the left, sharper features, a scar bisecting his eyebrow, stepped forward. Hyung Nim. His voice carried deference wrapped in concern. Who is? She stays. Junyoung's tone allowed no argument. Jihoon. Have Mrs. Han prepare the guest room. Jihoon's gaze lingered on Kendra, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. Recognition? Suspicion? Whatever it was made her skin prickle. The penthouse sprawled before her like something from a magazine spread floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Minimalist furniture in blacks and grays, but punctuated with Korean traditional elements that caught her breath. A mother-of-pearl inlaid cabinet, calligraphy scrolls that her grandmother would have admired. And everywhere, framed photographs of a beautiful woman with classical features and sad eyes, sometimes holding a cello, sometimes simply staring at the camera with the expression of someone already halfway gone. Seo-yeon. The name came to Kendra unbidden, written in her mind by the weight of Jun Young's grief. The television murmured in the corner, news anchors discussing a fire at a waterfront warehouse. The carefully neutral language didn't hide the footage of police tape and body bags. The ticker at the bottom mentioned ongoing investigations into organized crime activity. Kendra's stomach dropped. The man beside her, rocking his daughter with surprising gentleness, was that man. The one authorities spoke about in careful euphemisms. You're afraid. Jun Young's voice was quiet, almost kind. You should be. But Mia needs you more than you need to be safe. It should have terrified her. Instead, the brutal honesty steadied something inside. He wasn't pretending, wasn't hiding what he was. Kendra moved to the windows, still humming the lullaby, and Jun Young followed like a man drawn by invisible threads. She told him about her grandmother while the city lights glittered below, how she'd taught Kendra Korean phrases, made kimchi in their Carolina kitchen, sang the old songs while braiding Kendra's hair. She didn't mention Elijah. Couldn't. Not yet. But Jun Young understood anyway. She saw it in how his shoulders dropped fractionally, how his voice softened when he asked, "How long?" 9 months. The words scraped her throat raw. 3, he replied. Childbirth. They stood in shared silence, 2 people who'd buried pieces of themselves. Until Mia stirred. Kendra sang again, and the baby's eyes drifted closed. Complete peace. The kind that had eluded Jun Young for 93 days. His hand trembled as he touched Mia's cheek. She hasn't done that since. His voice fractured. I know, Kendra whispered. Stay. It wasn't a question. 3 days. I'll pay whatever you need. Just until she adjusts. Maminer. Every instinct screamed danger. But those instincts had kept her alive and miserable for 9 months. Maybe danger was exactly what she needed to feel human again. 3 days, Kendra agreed, not knowing she'd just sealed a fate neither of them could escape. Behind them, Ji-hoon spoke in rapid Korean to another guard. Kendra caught only fragments, the old ways, and woman who soothes the air. But the tone made her spine stiffen. This wasn't just a babysitting arrangement. This was something ancient, something binding, something that would demand far more than 3 days. Kendra woke to Egyptian cotton sheets and the smell of fear sweat on her own skin. For 3 blissful seconds, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed in with the television voices seeping through the guest room door, news anchors discussing alleged Jun organization involvement in territorial disputes over footage of crime scene tape and federal agents. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment. Cream walls, minimalist furniture, a bathroom with heated floors, a prison cell designed by someone with impeccable taste. She found Mrs. Han in the kitchen, a woman somewhere past 60 with silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, and eyes that had witnessed too much to be shocked by anything. She spoke English with barely an accent, pressing tea into Kendra's hands before she could protest. You gave him hope last night. Mrs. Han's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. But hope is dangerous in this house, child. It makes men careless. Before Kendra could respond, Mia's wails erupted from the nursery. She moved on instinct, finding Jun Young pacing with his daughter, while a nanny stood helplessly nearby. The moment Kendra entered, Mia's cries shifted, still desperate. But reaching now, tiny fists, grasping toward the only person who'd brought her peace. Kendra sang. Mia quieted. The nanny looked relieved and slightly offended. This pattern repeated throughout the morning. Armed men in expensive suits conducting business meetings in rapid Korean that Kendra only partially understood, words like territory and family and debt that needed no translation. They fell silent when she passed, eyes tracking her with a wariness usually reserved for unexploded ordnance. By noon, Jun Young found her in the nursery, looking more exhausted than any man in a $3,000 suit should look. 1 week. His voice carried the weight of surrender. Name your price. Whatever you need. Guaranteed safety. Freedom to leave whenever I choose. And I need to keep job searching. I can't just disappear from my life. Kendra kept her voice steady despite her hammering heart. Done. I'll have Ji-hoon draft a contract. Mrs. Han appeared in the doorway as if summoned. After Jun-young left, she poured more tea, her expression grave. In the old families, there's a tradition. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. The woman who brings peace to an heir becomes bound to that family. It's sacred. It's not something you can sign away in a contract, no matter what words are written. The words sent ice down Kendra's spine. I'm just helping with a baby. Child. You sang his mother's lullaby. You calmed the air when no one else could. To them, you're already chosen. Mrs. Han's hand covered Kendra's. I know because I was you once. 40 years ago, with Jun-young's grandfather. Some bindings don't need signatures. That afternoon, while Mia napped, Kendra searched online with shaking hands. The June organization appeared in carefully worded articles, alleged crime syndicate, suspected involvement, ongoing investigations. Nightclub fronts. Import-export businesses that imported nothing legal. Territory wars leaving bodies in their wake. She should run. Should grab her things and never look back. But her bank account was hemorrhaging from therapy bills she couldn't afford. Her gospel career was ashes. And Mia, sweet, desperate Mia, had just reached for her in her sleep. Tiny fingers curling around Kendra's thumb with devastating trust. When Jun-young returned that evening, Kendra found him standing before Seo-yeon's photograph, shoulders bowed. She hated this world, he said without turning. Died hating me for keeping her in it. Kendra understood the shape of that guilt, recognized it in her own mirror. 1 week, she agreed, signing the contract that meant nothing and everything. Then I'm gone. Ji-hoon watched from the doorway, and Kendra could have sworn she saw pity in his eyes. 5 days blurred into a rhythm that felt dangerously like belonging. Kendra sang Mia to sleep each night, her voice weaving Korean lullabies with gospel melodies, while Jun-young watched from the doorway with an expression that made her forget to breathe. Mrs. Han taught her to make kimchi jjigae while sharing stories of her own forbidden love, and somehow collard greens ended up simmering beside doenjang, creating something that belonged to neither culture and both. On the third night, Jun-young asked her to teach him the lullabies properly. His pronunciation was flawless. It was his mother's language. After all, but his voice cracked on the tender words, unused to softness. Kendra's hand found his without thinking, steadying him through the melody. There's something you need to understand, he said afterward, still holding her hand. In the old families, the woman who soothes the air isn't just a nanny. She's sacred, untouchable, destined to become part of the family. His thumb traced circles on her palm. My uncle and the elders are already calling you Hui Mang Ui Mogsori, voice of hope. I'm leaving in 2 days. But even Kendra heard the lie in her voice. Are you? The late nights became confessions. She told him about the car accident, about Elijah's last breath, about the steering wheel slick with her tears. He told her about Seo-yeon's final words, I can't do this anymore, spoken not about childbirth but about loving a man whose hands were stained with blood. They traded spirituals for traditional Korean songs, teaching each other the language of grief in different tongues. Kendra taught him his eye is on the sparrow. Jun-young taught her Korean, beyond her grandmother's simple phrases, words for longing, for duty, for the kind of love that destroys everything it touches. The attraction grew like heat in a closed room, suffocating and undeniable. Ji-hoon appeared on the 5th morning, his expression grim. He spoke in rapid Korean, but Kendra caught the important parts. Park family, asking questions. Uncle Min-ho, displeased. Black woman, heir. Jun-young's jaw went tight. He'll have to get over it. Hyung-nim. He's threatening to call a council. And the Park family, they're calling her a weakness, a target. The words hung like smoke. Kendra felt the walls closing in. Uncle Min-ho arrived that afternoon, a man carved from ice and tradition, his suit immaculate, his disgust barely masked by practiced politeness. He spoke in Korean, but his eyes said everything his words didn't. You don't belong here. You're polluting our bloodline. She leaves, Min-ho said in English, turning to Kendra with a smile that cut like glass, for her own safety, of course. The family's talk. A black woman caring for a Korean heir? It's unprecedented, unnatural, And she stays. Jun Young's voice carried the weight of finality. That evening, Kendra found Jun Young at Seo Yun's memorial altar, surrounded by photographs and incense smoke. She didn't ask permission, just knelt beside him and sang a hymn her grandmother had taught her, Korean words praising a God who understood suffering. When she finished, Jun Young's hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness. I can't protect you from what's coming, he whispered, but I can't let you go either. The kiss tasted like grief and impossibility and something that felt terrifyingly like home. Kendra kissed him back, knowing she was signing away more than any contract could contain. Behind them, unseen, Ji-hoon sent a message. The black woman isn't leaving. Prepare for complications. In a compound across the city, Park Dae-jung smiled at the intelligence report. Finally, the untouchable Jun Jun Young had a weakness. And weaknesses, in their world, were simply targets waiting to be exploited. The storm they don't see coming? It's going to rip everything apart. And Kendra is about to discover exactly what she's capable of when the people she loves are threatened. Stay with me because what happens next will leave you speechless. After the kiss, Jun Young held her face like she might disappear. Give me the remaining days. Let me prove we can be a family. Kendra should have said no. Instead, she whispered, okay. That night, she told him everything. How the rain had made the roads slick. How she'd reached back to adjust Elijah's blanket. How the guardrail had appeared too late. I hear the metal every night, she confessed, her voice breaking. I hear him stop crying. Jun Young pulled her close, and for the first time in 9 months, someone held her while she shattered. He told her about his father's assassination when he was 26, a bullet meant for the old boss but finding the heir instead. About inheriting an empire he wasn't ready for. About Seo Yun's pregnancy being his last desperate grasp at something clean. She knew what I was. Thought a baby would save me from myself. His laugh was bitter. Instead, I killed her trying to give me redemption. You didn't kill her. Childbirth killed her. My world killed her. They understood each other's guilt in ways that needed no translation. The next day, Jun Young took her to a Korean spa, female bodyguards trailing at a respectful distance. In the steam room, he taught her formal Korean words for family, for belonging, for the kind of love that transcends reason. She taught him the gospel songs her mother sang, the ones about grace that doesn't make sense. But that evening, she watched him become someone else. A traitor knelt in his office while Jun Young spoke in a voice like winter, ordering punishment with the same hands that had held his daughter with infinite gentleness an hour before. Kendra stood in the hallway, frozen, understanding exactly what kind of man she was falling for. He's both, Mrs. Han said softly beside her. The monster and the man. Can you love both? I don't know if I should, but do you? Kendra couldn't answer. Uncle Minho returned the next morning with reinforcements, 3 elders in traditional hanbok, their disapproval thick as incense smoke. They spoke in rapid Korean, but Minho switched to English for Kendra's benefit. You think a black woman can raise a Korean heir? The families will never accept this. You're a phase, a curiosity, an insult to everything we've built. Jun Young rose like violence taking shape. Speak to her that way again, and family won't protect you. You'd choose her over your own blood? Over centuries of tradition? Minho's laugh was ugly. The Park family is watching. They're calling her your weakness. And they're right. After they left, Jun Young found Kendra in the nursery, holding Mia like a shield against the world. They'll come for you, he said. To hurt me. They'll come for you. I should let you go. Send you somewhere safe, but you won't. No. His honesty was brutal. I'm too selfish. Too far gone. That evening, Kendra found Mrs. Han in the kitchen, and the words spilled out before she could stop them. I'm falling in love with him. With this. With all of it. Even though it's going to destroy me. Mrs. Han smiled sadly. I told you. I was you once, 40 years of being the outsider who belonged to no one but him. It's a beautiful prison, child. And the bars are made of love. In his office, Ji-hoon laid out intelligence reports. Park family movements. Weapons shipments. Plans forming in the dark. They're coming, Ji-hoon said. I know. Jun Young stared at Kendra through the security monitors, watching her sing to his daughter. And I'll burn the whole world down before I let them touch her. The storm was gathering, and neither love nor lullabies could stop what was coming. The explosion came at 4 in the morning, ripping Kendra from sleep with the violence of memory metal crunching, glass shattering. Elijah's silence. But this wasn't memory. This was June Young's phone erupting with calls, his face going corpse pale in the darkness. The nightclub. His voice was arctic. They hit the nightclub. Jihoon's voice through the speaker carried the weight of catastrophe. 12 casualties. And Hyung Nim. They left something. A message. Kendra saw it on the news footage 20 minutes later, a severed finger on the charred bar. A note in Korean that the anchors wouldn't translate. But June Young's expression told her everything she needed to know. What does it say? Her voice was steady, despite the terror crawling up her spine. Surrender the black whore or we take everything. He wouldn't look at her. This is Park Dae-jung. And my uncle helped him. The words landed like bullets. Uncle Minho's betrayal wasn't about tradition. It was about power, with racism as the convenient excuse. Jihoon burst through the door, 3 guards behind him. They're coming. Now, we have maybe 10 minutes. The penthouse transformed into a fortress. Steel shutters descended over windows. Armed men took positions. Mrs. Han appeared with Mia, already dressed, a bag packed with frightening efficiency. The panic room, Jun Young ordered. All of you, now. The panic room was buried in the penthouse core reinforced steel, independent air supply, enough supplies for a week. Mrs. Han held Mia while Kendra stood frozen, watching through security monitors as black SUVs surrounded the building below. This is my fault, Kendra whispered. I should never have stayed. Child! They would have found another excuse. Mrs. Han's voice was firm. Men like Park don't need reasons. They need targets. The first explosion shook the building. Then gunfire rapid, professional, deadly. On the monitors, Kendra watched Jun Young become someone else entirely. The tender father vanished, replaced by the crime lord who'd built an empire on violence. He moved through the chaos with brutal precision, speaking in clipped Korean, orchestrating defense like a general commanding war. The second explosion breached the penthouse entrance. Through the panic room's reinforced door, Kendra heard it all shouting in Korean and English, the distinctive crack of traditional Korean weapons mixing with modern gunfire. Men dying. So many men dying. Then the panic room's secondary door, the one leading to service passages, shuttered. Someone had bypassed the main defenses. Mrs. Han moved faster than Kendra thought possible, shoving them toward the escape route while putting herself between Kendra and the breach. The door exploded inward. Mrs. Han took the bullet meant for Mia, crumpling with a gasp that sounded almost surprised. Run! She screamed. The service elevator, you know the building, run! Kendra ran. She knew these passages from her hotel coordinator days, knew every maintenance route and service access. Mia clutched against her chest. Kendra sang through her terror soft, desperate lullabies to keep the baby quiet while footsteps pounded behind them. The attacker caught her at the service elevator. A man built like a wall, speaking Korean she didn't understand but didn't need to. His gun rose. Kendra's hand found the tactical pen in her pocket, a gift from Jihoon she'd thought paranoid. She drove it into the man's throat with force, born of pure maternal fury, watching him fall while something inside her shattered and reformed harder. The elevator descended. Mia was silent. Those dark eyes trusting Kendra, with a faith that broke her heart. They almost made it to the garage. The Park family was waiting. Hands grabbed her from behind. A cloth over her face, chemical sweet and suffocating. Kendra's last conscious thought was of Jun Young's promise, I'll burn the whole world down before I let them touch her. She hoped he meant it. Because in the compound where she woke hours later, surrounded by men who looked at her with hatred and hunger, Kendra understood with terrible clarity that the world was exactly what they needed to burn. Kendra woke to traditional Korean architecture twisted into nightmare. The Park compound sprawled like a dark mirror of Jun Young's penthouse, same elegant lines, same careful balance of modern and traditional, but everything here felt wrong. The calligraphy scrolls spoke of honor, while men with guns patrolled outside. The mother-of-pearl cabinet held weapons instead of heirlooms. Mia lay beside her, miraculously still sleeping. Kendra's body ached. Her throat burned from whatever they'd used to knock her out. But the baby was unharmed. That was all that mattered. She's awake. The voice came from the doorway. Smooth and cultured and venomous. Park Dae-jung looked like what Jun Young might have become if he'd let hate consume him completely. Expensive suit, traditional tattoos. But his eyes held nothing but carefully cultivated rage. The mongrel wakes. He smiled, switching to English for her benefit. Tell me, does Jun know what you really are? A black whore polluting his bloodline, contaminating the air with your filthy American songs? Kendra met his gaze, refusing to flinch. She'd heard worse from Uncle Minho. Racism dressed in tradition was still just racism. He's coming for us, she said quietly. I'm counting on it. Park circled the room like a predator savoring the hunt. You see, 5 years ago, Jun Young killed my son over a territorial dispute, a minor disagreement about shipping routes, and he put a bullet in my boy's head. His voice stayed calm, but his hands shook. Now I'm going to use his mongrel bitch and his half-breed daughter to destroy him. He'll surrender everything, his territory, his organization, his honor, and then I'll kill all 3 of you while he watches. Kendra forced herself to stay still, to keep her breathing steady. Mia stirred, beginning to fuss. May I? She gestured to the baby. Park nodded, amused by her audacity. Kendra sang, soft and low, the Korean lullaby that started everything. Mia calmed. Park's expression flickered something almost human before the hate reasserted itself. Even your voice is contaminated. Korean words from a black mouth. He turned away. Jun arrives at nightfall. Enjoy your last hours together. The door locked behind him. Kendra waited until his footsteps faded before allowing herself to shake. Hours crawled past. She mapped the room mentally, window height, door reinforcement, possible weapons. The ornamental hairpin in her hair became her hidden blade. She practiced with Mia, singing a specific note that made the baby go quiet instantly, a stop signal for when silence meant survival. Through the window, she watched men preparing. Weapons positioned. Snipers taking positions. This wasn't just a trap. This was an execution dressed as negotiation. Then she saw him. Uncle Minho standing with Park's men, laughing. The betrayal hit fresh and raw. He appeared at her door an hour later, his expression almost pitying. I'm saving our family from contamination, he said in Korean, knowing she'd understand enough. You're a disease, black woman, poisoning everything pure. When this ends, the Jun family will thank me for cutting out the rot. You traded 12 lives for your racist pride, Kendra replied in halting Korean, remembering the nightclub casualties. That's not honor, that's just hate. Minho's smile was cold. Hate and honor are often the same thing. After he left, Kendra held Mia close, singing softly while her mind raced. She'd survived a car crash that killed her son. She'd survived 9 months of grief that should have ended her. She'd killed a man with a pen to protect this baby. This is my family now, she whispered to Mia. And I'm not losing another one. Outside, the sun began to set. Somewhere in the city, Jun Young was coming. Kendra checked the hairpin's point, sang her stop signal one more time, memorized the guard rotations. If they wanted her to be the weapon that destroyed Jun Young, they'd miscalculated badly. She'd be a weapon, just not the one they expected. Jun Young walked into the courtyard with his hands raised, alone. The setting sun painted him in amber and shadow, his expensive suit traded for simple black. His tattoos fully visible, he looked like a king surrendering his crown. Park Dae-jung stood behind Kendra and Mia, a gun to the baby's head. Uncle Minho flanked him, victory written across his face. The mighty Jean, brought to his knees by a black woman and a crying baby. Park's laugh was acid, poetic. Let them go. Jun Young's voice carried no emotion, but Kendra saw the tremor in his hands. You want my territory. It's yours. The organization, the businesses, everything. Just let them walk away. Oh, you'll give me everything. Park's smile widened. And then you'll watch them die. Starting with the mongrel. Uncle Minho stepped forward. Righteousness dripping from every word. This purifies our bloodline. Restores honor. Removes the contamination. Kendra screamed. Not a scream of fear, but a weapon forged from years of gospel training. She hit the note her vocal coach taught her, the frequency that resonated in the inner ear, that made balance impossible. The courtyard erupted in chaos as Park's men stumbled, hands to their heads. Jun Young moved like violence incarnate. His raised hands dropped, revealing the wire he'd been holding. The signal. Ji-hoon and 20 men emerged from positions they'd held for hours, rooftops, walls, hidden vehicles. The trap had been double-layered all along. Gunfire shattered the twilight. Traditional Korean blades met modern weapons. Kendra grabbed Mia and ran. But Uncle Minho blocked her path. His face twisted with hate. "This is your fault, black bitch. All of this." Kendra screamed again, point blank, the sound hitting him like a physical blow. He staggered, and she drove her knee into his groin, with 9 months of rage and grief behind it. He fell, gasping. "That's for Mrs. Han," she whispered. Across the courtyard, Jun Young and Park Dae-jung collided in violence that transcended business into something primal. Park fought with the fury of a father who'd lost everything. Jun Young fought with the precision of a man protecting his future. Park went down hard, blood spreading across traditional stones. Jun Young stood over him, gun raised, finger tightening on the trigger. 5 years of territorial war, 12 dead from the nightclub, Mrs. Han's sacrifice, all of it demanding payment in blood. "Do it!" Park gasped. "Prove you're the monster I always knew." "Stop." Kendra's voice cut through the carnage. She stood there holding Mia, the baby miraculously calm, and in her eyes, Jun Young saw everything he'd been fighting for. "Mia needs a father, not a murderer." Her voice was steady despite the tears. "We need the man, not the monster. Break the cycle, Jun Young, for her. For us." The gun trembled. Everything in Jun Young's training, his history, his honor demanded he pull the trigger. Park had killed his men, threatened his daughter, tried to destroy everything, but Kendra was right. This was the choice that mattered. Jun Young lowered the gun. "Ji-hoon," called Detective Sung. "Time to use that corruption network we've been documenting." He looked down at Park. "You'll rot in prison, exposed by the same system you thought protected you. That's a worse death than a bullet." Police sirens wailed in the distance, real police this time, ones who owed Jun Young favors but could no longer be ignored. Uncle Minho crawled to his feet, broken. "You're choosing her over family? Over honor? She is my family." Jun Young walked to Kendra, pulled her and Mia close. "And she's taught me more about honor than you ever knew. Then you're exiled." Minho's voice shook. "From all families, all organizations. You're nothing." "Good," Jun Young said. "That's exactly what I want to be." Ji-hoon approached, bleeding but alive. "It's done, Hyung Nim. All of it. You're free." The word hung in the air. Impossible and perfect. Free. Kendra kissed him then, tasting blood and victory, and the beginning of something that looked terrifyingly like happiness. Mia cooed between them, the sound of innocence surviving darkness. Behind them, Park was dragged away, screaming about corruption and betrayal. Uncle Minho stood alone, a man whose hate had cost him everything. The cycle was broken. The monster had become a man. And in the ruins of violence, a family was born. They held each other in the ruins of Park's compound while police sirens wailed and Ji-hoon's men secured the perimeter. Jun Young's hands cupped Kendra's face like she might disappear. And when he kissed her, he tasted salt, hers or his. Impossible to tell. "I love you," he whispered. "In every language, I know." "I love you too." Kendra pulled back just enough to see his eyes. "Even the monster. Even the man. All of you. Mrs. Han survived surgery with the stubborn resilience of someone who'd lived through worse. She woke to find them at her bedside, Jun Young holding Mia, Kendra holding his hand, and smiled through the pain medication haze. "Took you long enough," she rasped in Korean, then switched to English. "Now make it official before I die waiting." "You're not dying," Kendra said, but her voice broke. "No, but I'm not missing this wedding either." The council meeting happened in neutral territory, a traditional restaurant closed to the public, 7 family heads and their advisors seated around a low table. Jun Young stood before them, Kendra at his side, and announced what would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. "I'm stepping down. Ji-hoon will lead the transition to legitimate operations. But I have conditions." Uncle Minho's absence left a void that spoke louder than presence. The remaining elders watched with expressions ranging from skepticism to barely concealed rage. "She saved my daughter when I couldn't," Jun Young continued, his hand finding Kendra's. "She saved me from becoming my father. If you can't accept her, you can't accept me." The silence stretched. Then Kim Tae-sung, head of the Busan family, spoke. "The woman fought beside you, used her voice as a weapon, showed more courage than half our soldiers." His weathered face creased into something almost resembling respect. "That's honor, regardless of skin color." One by one, the others nodded. Not enthusiastic approval, some faces still held prejudice but acknowledgement. Strength, recognize strength. Kendra spoke then, in carefully practiced Korean that Mrs. Han had drilled into her during recovery visits. I want to be a bridge between cultures, between old ways and new, not to erase tradition, but to show that love makes us stronger, not weaker. Later, in the car ride home, Mia babbled in Kendra's arms. Then, clear as morning light, Mama, Jun Young nearly drove off the road. Kendra wept, pressing kisses to the baby's forehead while 9 months of grief finally began to heal into something new. Not replacement. Never replacement. But permission to love again. 8 months later, the garden ceremony looked like something from a dream where cultures collided and created magic. Kendra wore white silk that somehow honored both hanbok and church tradition, while Jun Young stood in a charcoal suit with subtle Korean embroidery at the cuffs. Buddhist monks chanted blessings while a Baptist choir hummed Amazing Grace. The reception tables overflowed with kimchi beside collard greens, bulgogi next to fried chicken, soju and sweet tea in equal measure. Mrs. Han cried through the entire ceremony. Kendra's mother, who'd flown in from Carolina with 20 years of skepticism in her luggage, wept into Ji-hoon's offered handkerchief, finally understanding what her daughter had found in the wreckage. Their suburban house sat in a neighborhood where 5 languages echoed from porches and nobody looked twice at mixed families. Kendra's music room held her grandmother's photos and a wall of gospel vinyl. Mia's nursery was painted in soft yellows, Korean characters spelling hope above African-American quilts stitched by Kendra's grandmother decades ago. The gospel album dropped 3 weeks after the wedding. Voice of Hope climbed charts. Nobody expected songs about car crashes and childbirth deaths and impossible lullabies, about tattooed men learning tenderness and broken women finding strength. The dedication read, "For Elijah, who taught me to love. For Seo-yun, who gave us Mia. For Mia, who saved us all." Ji-hoon arrived on a Tuesday with an envelope bearing 7 family seals. "Official release from all syndicates," he said, setting it on their kitchen counter like it was just another piece of mail. "Signed by every family head. You earned your freedom, Hyung. The Black Queen who brought peace, that's what they call her. The families respect that." Jun Young looked at Kendra, who was pressing a hand to her stomach with a secret smile. "We have something to tell you," she said. "Twins." Jun Young's voice carried wonder. "We're having twins. From a crying baby in an elevator to this. If you made it this far, you already know these are the stories that stay with you. Subscribe now so you never miss another one. And share this with someone who needs to believe in second chances today." That evening, they put Mia to bed together, singing the lullaby that started everything. Kendra's soprano wove through Jun Young's bass, creating harmony from languages and grief and impossible love. Mia's eyes drifted closed, safe in the knowledge that she was cherished. In their bedroom, Jun Young's hand found Kendra's growing belly. Around them, their home told the story. Korean art beside quilts, kimchi next to soul food, a Bible and Buddhist texts sharing a shelf. 2 cultures, 2 broken hearts, 1 family bound by sacrifice and song. From an elevator cry to this moment of perfect peace, they'd earned every impossible second.